Hey guys, welcome back to Brandon Does Barbecue. Today we are doing the king of barbecue, smoked brisket. Now, most people would consider brisket to be the true test and rite of passage of any barbecuer. It's a tough cut of meat, takes a long time to cook, so if you can master a brisket, you can master just about anything. Now, what puts brisket so high on the barbecue totem pole? Well, one, it's absolutely delicious, and two, it's a pretty tricky cut of meat to cook. It's got two different muscles, the grain runs in two different directions. It's a tough cut of meat, so you gotta cook for a very long time. You got the flat, which is a lean cut, then you got the point, which is a fatty cut. So you gotta try to cook the point, all the way and get that done without drying out the flat. It can be a little tricky, but I think we can do it. We are ready to smoke us some brisket. 6:30 in the morning, haven't had my cup of coffee, but once we get her on, we'll get to that. Now, this was a 17.5 pound prime brisket that we got from Sam's Club. We got it all trimmed up, so it's probably like 13 pounds by now. Now, a full packer brisket is comprised of two different muscles. We got the point, which is over here, kind of under this section, then you got the flat. The point is a nice moist section, then the lean part is the flat right here. So the tricky part is you're trying to cook this thing and get this part nice and done without overcooking this. We got the grain going two different directions, but we'll get more into that as we go. So for now, let's go ahead and get her seasoned up. Now, there are a variety of pre-made rubs out there that go great on brisket. If I had to choose, I'd say Meat Church Holy Cow or Killer Hogs TX, but today we're going to keep it true to Texas style. We're just going to do kosher salt and black pepper. And for our binder, we're going to go ahead and use a mustard. So first, let's go ahead and make a rub. Alright, so we're shooting for about half and half here. I would advise you get yourself a nice shaker like this. It really helps evenly distribute all your seasonings. I've tried doing it separately, and I don't know, I feel like you get too much of one and too little of the other. So for our binder today, we're going to go ahead and use mustard. I absolutely hate mustard as a condiment, but I think it makes a fantastic binder. It just really does a great job of getting that rub to adhere to the meat. So we're going to go ahead and get it binded up. So I always want to do the presentation side last when it comes to rub, which the presentation side is going to be the fat cap. So we'll do the underside first. Let's go ahead and give it a good pat. And flip. So we got our smoker running at my favorite spot, 275 degrees. We're smoking with hickory today. If you want to stay true to the Texas style, you could do post oak, but I have a ton of hickory, so that's what we're going to use. I got a water pan in there to keep the cook chamber nice and moist. So let's put it in. So now when you put this brisket in, I like to do fat cap up, and then you want to have the point toward the firebox. The point can take a lot of heat. It's going to be hotter over toward the firebox. Also, I like to have the fat cap on top because that's going to provide a barrier to keep the meat from overcooking, because all the smoke's is going to come up and roll over top of that. So that's my preference. You can do it how you want, see what works best for you, but I've had a lot of luck doing it that way. Alright, so now that we got that on, we got about 12, 13, 14 hours to kill. So hopefully you have lots of activities planned for the day, because it's going to be a long day. Now, our brisket's been on for about 5 hours. Periodically, I'll go in there and I'll spritz any edges that look like they're starting to dry out. The brisket's just now hit the stall, and what the stall is basically when the brisket starts to push out all those liquids, and the liquids kind of cool down the meat, which makes it really hard to get past that certain temperature. So if it's at like 165, 170, and it feels like it's forever that it's not going anywhere, just be patient, it'll eventually break through the stall. Now when it hits the stall, I prefer to wrap it, so that's what we're going to do. Let's check it out. So as you can see, we've started to develop a nice bark. It's got that good mahogany color, which is what I like to see on a brisket. And then just to get an idea of where we're at, we'll go ahead and temp it. It's about 168. And there's quite a bit of resistance in there, so we're not close to being done, but we'll go ahead and get it wrapped up and push on through. What I've got here is 2 sheets of pink butcher paper. I cut them out in lengths that are roughly about 3 times the width of the brisket. Then I just kind of overlap them. So before we put the brisket on, get some apple cider vinegar. Just kind of spritz the area we're going to put the brisket on. Now the point of the apple cider vinegar is just to help retain a little bit more moisture. You want that brisket as juicy as possible. Alright, now we got that, let's go get our brisket. So normally when I take it out, I have to check it out, give it a good look. You can feel that it's getting that nice jiggly texture. The fat's starting to render. You can press your fingers right in there. So I think we're on the right route. So when I wrap, I'll start by putting the back end up there, pressing it in, then just kind of fold the outside in. Then try to get it as tight as possible, but sometimes it's difficult. First flip, do the wings again. Alright, we got our brisket all wrapped. Now to put her back in the smoker. Probably wondering why I wrapped it. Well, technically you don't have to. You could let the brisket go all the way, but I like to wrap it just because I feel like it speeds up the cook a little bit and it helps hold in a lot of moisture. Now, some people use aluminum foil, which is also called the Texas Crutch, but if you do that, it will not let any moisture out, so it'll just steam itself and it kind of gets like a pot roasty flavor. Not a fan of that. Butcher paper is actually a little bit permeable, so it lets out some of that moisture, but also holds in quite a bit too. So now that we got it wrapped up, it's not really going to take on any more smoke, so you don't have to be as particular about getting clean smoke. And technically, you could throw it in the oven, but if you want to spend a nice day outside, if you don't want to cheat, just finish it in the smoker. Alright, so our brisket's been in for about 8 hours. I've been looking at it. It's feeling pretty tender. It's probing ripe. To me, it's ready to pull, which I'm a little suspicious of because it's the fastest brisket I've ever done. But let's check it out. I'll show you what I'm looking for. So general range for temperature on these would be between 200 and 210, but you really just want to go by feel. If it feels like it's probing nice and tender, that's when you pull. So what I'm looking for is if I pick it up in the middle, you start to feel that flat start to hang down. It's got a good jiggly texture, but the true test is if it feels like it's probing tender. So we'll do a spot right there between the point and the flat. Goes in there with very little resistance, 210 degrees. Do another spot. 211. And 211 on the point. So feels good to me. Now, I would rest this for at least 2 hours. You could just rest it on a countertop. If you think you're going to have it resting for a lot longer, waiting for guests, over 2 hours, I would go ahead and put it in a cooler with a towel, which is what I'll be doing. So we're going to go ahead and let it rest, and we'll be back. Alright, so this brisket has been resting for about 1, 2, carry the 3, divide, about 3.5 hours. So I think it's ready to slice. So let's go ahead and see what we got. Alright, so I got this beautiful brisket in front of me. I like to normally kind of feel it up, not in a weird way, but just to kind of get an idea if it's headed in the direction that I want. You can see it's got a nice jiggle. All that fat is rendered, so I think it's time to slice. Now, when you slice it, we've got 2 different muscles. The grain going in completely different directions. So we've got the flat, where the grain is kind of going this way, and we got the point, it's going the other way. So we've got 2 different cuts we got to make. So come on in, I'll show you. So we'll start with this point. Ooh, if it goes through that easy, you know you are doing good. Now try to keep your slices about number 2 pencil thick. That's the saying, so we'll go with that. And then as you're coming down, you're just kind of work your way around here until you get about halfway through to the point, and then we're going to switch directions. So now we got our flat sliced up, so we're going to go ahead and scoot that to the side. Now we got our point where the muscles are different, the grain runs in different directions, so we're going to move it 90 degrees. We'll just go ahead and slice right in half, then you can just kind of work your way out. Oh, that is beautiful. Now as you can see, this seam fat has completely rendered through. That's how you know you've done good. At the beginning of this cook, I mean when it was raw, that seam fat was probably about 3/4 of an inch thick. It is rendered down to nothing, providing all that juiciness that you want in a good brisket. Now with the point, you want to go a little bit thicker than you would with the flat, just because you got a lot more rendered fat in there. It's going to be easier for it to fall apart, as you can see. This brisket smells phenomenal. All right, before I taste it, you gotta do like the cliche brisket test, which basically they'll do the hang test. If it hangs over like that without, you know, falling apart, it's good. And it should be able to pull apart with little resistance. And I think it passed that test. Which now the next test is taste. Oh man. So tender, smoky, and the beefiness level is unreal. Oh no, I dropped a piece. Oh, that is so freaking good. You know, you put a lot of time and effort into a brisket, but I assure you, the end result is completely worth it. So that was the flat that we tried. Now we're going to go ahead and try the point. That's the more moist side. So let's see what we got. Oh God. It's so good. It's so juicy. Like the beefy flavor is like to the roof right now. Alright guys, I appreciate you watching. If you like what you saw, like, subscribe, and all that jazz, and I'll see you next time.